Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for our second match of the day, the Copenhagen Wolves versus SK Gaming. Quick shot. I've always got a question for you at the start of this one. This time, can the puppies of Copenhagen Wolves get out of that cage that SK Gaming put them in last time?
Well, we'll have to see, because let's be very honest. They were locked inside the cage, but SK took a long time to get through with that game. You know, they dragged it out for much longer than they needed to. They didn't make the plays when they needed to. And maybe the Wolves will say, well, look, we were outplayed, we lost the matchup, but we know what we did wrong. We need to make more plays more often, and we'll see if they've learned from their mistakes.
Well, let's have a quick look then at the teams that are going to be facing off here. Of course, for Copenhagen Wolves on the top side, we have Nigod Bro in the top lane, Kautard in the middle lane, the Tess and Deficio in the bottom lane, and of course, Svenskeren in the jungle.
And of course, for SK Gaming, Kevin up in the top lane, Ocelot mid, Candy Panda and Nif down bottom, and Hercubot in the jungle.
And Ocelot looked very much like a lion in that photo, you know, very hyped up. And he is one of the most emotional players around in League of Legends. All those great videos that we see from, you know, events past and present always have an Ocelot in there, whether he's screaming and shouting, whether he's crying of, you know, tears of joy for actually qualifying here into Season 3. He's a real character. Yeah,
that's true. And, you know, we caught up with SK Gaming. We chatted to them a little bit about their matchups and how they've gone so far. And Ocelot has said he gets bored. If they're farming up a little bit and he pushes, he gets caught out, he's like, well, I want to go, let's fight. And his team will start saying, no, don't fight and whatnot. So there's a little bit of parity between the teams and some of the calls in the mid to late game, and we'll have to see if he's figured out how to control himself.
Well, we saw from him, you know, against Fnatic, and we talked to him after day one had happened, and he was like, well, we just do this often. We throw games which are ours, which are rightfully ours, because we just lose patience, because we get bored, because we try and force things too much almost in that one. But either way, we asked both teams what they were thinking about each other before we got into today's action. Let's have a little look and see what they had to say.
We don't know much about them.
We have this issue now where we kind of focus on one strategy when we go into the game.
So, of course, we have to take them seriously.
We're gonna pay way more attention in both Champions Select and pre-Champions Select.
They are a really good team. Obviously, they are one of the 8 best teams of Europe.
Yeah, the battle can begin.
The battle can begin. What are your thoughts on this game as a whole? Because we said it before, we said it last week, that Copenhagen Wolves, you know, we called them puppies jokingly, but they weren't that bad. They didn't look too bad in that game. The question is whether they've had the time, that's for sure. There's a week in between their last defeat and today, of course. But have they been able to sit down and really hammer out what went wrong and how they fixed that here?
I want to see how they want to play it out, because, you know, we've seen them playing against Evil Geniuses, and they, I believe if I recall correctly, they got first blood, they reacted to the Twisted Fate Destiny gank of Froggen in the bottom, and actually picked up a kill off that as well. So the individual play and those sort of small micro skirmishes in the early stages of the game, they can do it. They can, you know, fight with the best of them, trade and pick up kills. The problem for the Wolves comes in once they get to the team game. I think because they haven't played at this level for prolonged periods of time, the decision-making seems to be a bit lacking. And, you know, we've seen last week when they're facing against SK, they had a poke comp. They got, you know, they sat on their tower. They didn't land very, you know, they didn't land too much poke successfully. And they didn't try commit fights. Now, fair enough, if you don't have a team fight comp, you can't. But they didn't know what to do once they fell behind.
And that can be the problem, you know. You set yourself, your whole week's practice coming into a game is set up on a certain comp, and if it doesn't go right at the parts that you've kind of banked on it going right, that's when it can be really hard. And that, I guess, separates the good teams and the best teams, the ability to really switch your whole mindset in a game from this is how we were going to play, but this has happened, so we have to now go ahead and do this. We've actually got quite a few stats, which you guys can obviously all find by going over to lolesports.com. Don't forget, button at the bottom to hide the spoilers there if you've not seen the results from the North American or even, I guess, from the European games last week. And there's some fairly interesting ones. Obviously, 2 games played so far for Copenhagen Wolves. They're 0 for 2, bottom of the table right now, technically. And then you've got SK 2-1. So the stats don't quite match up in terms of how many games they've played, but interesting nonetheless.
Well, you can take a look. Let's have a look at the average goal per minute. For example, for the Copenhagen Wolves, 1,300 300 gold per minute for the entire team. On the other side, SK Gaming, 1.6 thousand gold per minute. So they're in there. They're up near the top. And you've got to remember that the Copenhagen Wolves, they're 0-2 in both of these games. So they've fallen behind a little bit, and it becomes a bit more difficult to itemize and get that gold. The Copenhagen Wolves, they've got a number of key players to look out for. And let's have a quick look at the full roster of the Wolves.
Yeah, obviously we've got some very big names in here for the Wolves. We've highlighted the Tess here. He's played in both games so far in the European LCS with that Ezreal. We saw him being brilliant on it in the qualifiers as well. He's most certainly going to be influential in how they do in this one. Deficio, on the other hand, we've looked at him, I think in a video last week, they referred to him as the noob in the team, obviously technically the manager, but they've had these problems just from the fact that they can't have their normal mid laner playing for this one, which, once Bjergsen finally gets to the glorious age of 17, which I think is in a week or two.
I think it's tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow, and I think he's going to be playing next week. I stand to be correct on that, but within the next week or so, he's going to be back. And it's exactly like you said, the synergy, the team comp, practice with one player, attend the tournament with another, come here. It's really difficult to sit down and really buckle down and train and practice when your roster is going to be changing very, very soon.
Is a little bit all over the place indeed. Let's have a look at SK Gaming then in depth and see what they've got to offer. We've highlighted Kevin this time around because he's been a real solid player in this top lane for them. Up until now, played Olaf twice, which, as we said, we're playing on 3.01, which has had Olaf's taken a bit of a hit in there. He won one game with that Olaf out of the two. He's also played a Shen, which he has one game, one win with 100% ratio, which is after one game, maybe not quite the telling tale. But this SK lineup, we've said it before, they've got some very solid players. They've got that new old bottom lane, I guess we can call it, Candy Panda and Nif, the two Germans that stretch all the way back to Season 1 in Game D. They were kind of split up, but magically reunited here again for Season 3.
Yeah, rejoined to make the golden team. You can see the players there. These are the ones that we've been, we're going to be watching and keeping an eye on the middle lane. But, SK Gaming, the matchup where Kevin was playing Shen was actually against Godbros Needly up in the top lane, and it just became this bruiser battle. Neither could really outduel one another, and it was just a farm fest for the entirety of that matchup. So it was a little bit of a dull affair, if we can, go so brave as to say that. But eventually SK pulled ahead. Middle lane, Countard and Ocelot. This is going to be Countard's possibly last few games, today and tomorrow. And there's a lot of pressure on him. He needs to, stand up, and he's got time to shine. And I wonder if he's going to be able to do it against Ocelot.
Yeah, and Ocelot, we've said it before, he's a very emotional player. If it's going well, you'll hear him screaming and shouting, and he's playing better for that. He's a very momentum-based player. On the other hand, especially if he dies for first blood, or if something in his team doesn't quite go his way, he can fall off very, very quickly. It doesn't matter what champion he's playing in terms of mid-late game kind of fall-off ability. New word for you right there. He could just do that himself. In his own mind, Ocelot can rip himself to pieces really quickly, and that's something that I think he knows as a person, but they have to work on that, that's for sure.
Talking about Ocelot, the champions that he's played so far, Anivia, Orianna, and Kassadin. The Anivia was against Fnatic, where they lost because Peke played Caitlyn in the middle. And it was just, there's nothing you can do. The amount of auto attacks, the range, he was just completely shut down. Yeah. And it was just put behind. But his Orianna and his Kassadin have been very, very good. Kassadin was against Evil Geniuses, if I recall correctly. And, when we've seen them playing the Wolves, they failed to close it out effectively. They failed to do it fast. But when we've seen them against Evil Geniuses, they got that lead, they got the gold and the item advantage, and they actually pushed home the win around about 38 to 40 minutes, if I remember correctly. So over the period of a day, they were able to step back, calm their nerves, think about what they did wrong, and fix things. So I wonder if they've done something similar for this matchup.
Well, one thing that we didn't really touch on here as well is the jungle situation. Hercubot obviously coming in. He didn't qualify for Season 3 with SK, obviously. That was another Spaniard, Aranea, who is not actually with us for this event, obviously. But Hercubot's come in. We saw him first on show at Intel Extreme Masters Katowice. Wasn't as amazing as people would have, certainly as he would have hoped, I guess we can say. However, we did see him play last week, that jungle Vi, which got him... He was amazing with that jungle Vi. Early levels, managing to get into the middle lane for the early ganks and first blood. He was a real menace.
Yes, such a powerful champion, so much damage at those early levels. The burst they can put out is just, mental. We've seen, I think there was a vibe ban in the previous matchup, if I recall correctly. Almost certainly going to be something similar now, In terms of the other junglers, he has played also Shen and Cho'Gath. I'm having a look at his, opponent in the jungle, Svenskeren, who has played Lee Sin and Cho, and there's a big disparity in their gold per minute. Svenskeren has averaged 214 gold per minute to Hercubot's 267. That's a big, big difference. And, over a 30, 40-minute game, which is how long they played last time, 50 gold per minute on average adds up to many, many hundreds.
Yeah, it does. And one thing, I don't think we even mentioned this last week, that Svenskeren obviously did used to play in the jungle for SK Game. And there was a little bit of drama when he got kicked out of the team or left the team. Or I don't want to get into the whole politics thing, but there's certainly a nice little rivalry. He's only 17 himself, very, very young player. That surely will drive him on to do well here against his former teammates, at least some of them.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of bragging rights, a lot of things on the line, a lot of pressure. Sven played Lee Sin last week, a KDA of 3, so he did very well with his Lee Sin in comparison to Cho, but he hasn't really stamped a massive authority on the matchups. When we've seen the Wolves playing in the previous games, their individual lanes and the teleport ganks from Kautard have really what have set them apart. And I think Sven's going to need to get a little bit more in the faces of his opponents if he wants to start pulling a little bit further ahead and helping his team secure some early game advantages.
And one thing that, one part of the team which I think never gets enough love, in my opinion, is obviously the support player. We can see Nif there on the right-hand side of your screen with his AD carry Candy Panda there next to him. Nif, yes, last week played 2 out of his 3 games with a Sona, and he was hitting every crescendo. There were some amazing crescendos that came out of Nif last week. And if he's even in half that kind of form today, hitting those skill shots, specifically if he ends up getting his hands on the Sona again, then I think that Copenhagen Wolves, just from that, could be in a lot of trouble.
And we've seen a lot of Sona so far in the European LCS. Almost every single team has run Sona over the course of last week and this week. And exactly like you said, those crescendos were game-changing. Locked up so many members of the opposing teams. I think he had 3- and 4-man crescendos. Pretty much every single time he casted it, it was literally pixel perfect. And comparing him to Deficio, who has, of course, stepped into the support line relatively recently for the Copenhagen Wolves, there's a massive, massive difference once again there. The stats, we keep pointing them and looking at them, but 244 gold per minute on Nif's support to 171 gold per minute for Deficio. He has also played 1 game with Sona, 1 game with Lulu. The kills, the fact that behind they're not getting the kills means you don't get that assist gold. It all adds up. But again, a massive, massive disparity between these two teams.
Yeah, and you could see there in the kind of background shot there on the camera that some of the players are in fact in game, and that's pretty standard stuff. Obviously, as the teams switch from the last teams that were sitting there, the new teams come in. They obviously want to sit down and have themselves a little bit of warm-up time, making sure that everything's to their feeling. You can see there Hercubot just adjusting his monitor, making sure that's close enough or far away enough at the right height. These kind of things do make a difference coming into a game. There's not one team in the world that's been successful in the past in any game that's come in, sat down and just played. That just doesn't happen. There is obviously a practice room here. The teams, they don't come completely cold into this. They're allowed to sit down and play some games on the live realm. Which definitely helps them out. You have to come in warmed up and ready to go. Yeah,
each of these players, they need a little bit of time, 5-10 minutes, just to get their key bindings, get their graphic settings, really customize and get set up. I think it's, is it Diamond Prox or Genja from Gambit that plays in the windowed mode?
I think quite a few of them do, actually, yeah.
Used to playing at that specific small resolution because that's what they're comfortable with. That's what they're there about. And, at the end of the day, we're here for the tournament, so we need to respect the power of this warm-up session. You can see there Nif just really getting ready for this and playing a Taric. I wonder if we'll see a Taric this matchup. I think, is that Ocelot's little playbook with the little sunflower on the right of your screen? That must be worth a pretty penny.
Well, I think it is, to be honest with you. We saw him there writing a few notes in there, and that's something that you've always you got to have, in my opinion, as a team. Writing stuff down makes a big difference. Yeah, you can have everything in your head, but there's nothing better than coming in with a game plan written down on paper and saying, this is what we're doing. This is what you do. This is what I do. Nothing left to chance. It's all there. They know exactly what's coming down. Just got to keep an eye on it, because you don't want any teams sneaking around and having a quick peek on your playbook, do you, before you get going?
That actually happened a little bit earlier. Defusio, just as we were setting up for the show and about to go live, Defusio was sitting in the player warm-up area. He had his notes sitting on his lap, and as Crepo came up, he immediately flipped the paper and sat on it. He's like, no, this is our game plan. I don't want anybody to see this. I don't want anybody to know what's going on. I don't know what the plans are. And, you know, SK, they look relaxed. They look focused. Ocelot, big smiles. And, you know, you got to think they've come into this. They've got a game plan. They know what they want to do. And it's going to come down a lot to these picks and bans and who gets any, advantages.
And I want to clear this up now as well, because I think every single week questions about why are they wearing 400 pairs of headphones. And I can clear that one up for kind of finally. If anyone else asks, then you guys can tell them at home. But obviously they have in-ear earphones, I guess they're technically called, in the ear. Then they've got the soundproof headset over the top of it, which actually is just a big ear protector, basically. And then they've got their normal headset around their mouth, so they've got the microphone to talk to each other. So that's why they're wearing so many different pairs of headsets, and there's so many wires all over the place.
Just to make sure they can't hear our lovely voices, while the audience is listening in. So yeah, they're busy getting ready for this one. The favorite has to be SK Gaming. They've won. They won last week. They won against Evil Geniuses. In the opening video, we've seen the momentum and how important it is to get that leg up in the tournament and just make sure you can use that to your advantage. And the Wolves, the thing that they've got in their pocket is that they're the underdogs. There's not too much expected on them, without being too rude. So they have less pressure on them in that sense. And if they can use that to advantage, if they've got that comfort zone to play maybe a cheese strat or, just be a bit more relaxed in this matchup, maybe it can help them out as well. And
that's the thing. People talk about cheese strategies and how you should play in this league format, because we've said it before, it's 28 games that each team's got to play. We heard it in the video earlier that some of them are like, it's all about the first games. These first games so important. For some teams, it's not like that. It is a more drawn-out thing. It's not a loser best of 3 and you're out kind of scenario. So you've got to take everything week by week. And I think that's the reason why we're seeing so many of these quite one-sided games, if we're honest about it. But they take 40, 50 minutes to get completed, because no team wants to step out of line when they've got that advantage and risk throwing, a victory out of the window when we're only, 2 weeks in now. Yeah,
this is the 3rd day of games. I mean, this is game number 10 in the grand scheme of things. There are going to be so many games to come. And it's also a shift in this mentality. The teams are going to need to start understanding that we're not in the situation where you get knocked out. And once we start to get more settled, we'll get into the swing of things a little bit more. We are into the picks and bans, and the Copenhagen Wolves immediately removing Vi. I don't think anybody is surprised by that.
No, and the Twitch, actually, we did see being used last week by Candy Panda and Nif in this bottom lane. So that Twitch is a dangerous one. I said that, and I'm pretty sure it was Candy. Yeah, it was Candy Panda who played Twitch twice last week. So yeah, that's obviously aimed at him. Zyra, Defusio, and Coutard in the middle has actually played as well. You're right with that one. There's a Shen ban, which is a bit more, bog standard Shen.
A little bit more standard. It's also interesting to see SK Gaming banning it out as well. Godbro did play Shen last week, but Kevin had some very good Shen games as well. So they've decided they wanted to get rid of it. That Twitch mentioned as well, Candy Panda, a KDA of 8.5 on that champion. So he didn't just play the little rat well, he played it very well.
There is Olaf taken out. We said it earlier on that Kevin played a brilliant Olaf. Olaf has been hit in this one, but I don't think it's to the point where teams are saying, no, we're not going to play Olaf anymore. I think that Olaf is still very much a big part of League of Legends at this level. So what are SK going to go with here for their 3rd and final ban? Obviously, the Tess, he's played only Ezreal up until now. We've seen it, obviously, in the last couple of weeks, but also the qualifiers as well. But they went with a Xin Shao ban instead.
And I was going to say this as well, for that very last ban, the high priority ones was going to be the Kayle and the Xin. Kayle, a champion, we said in the previous game, could go anywhere. I initially thought it was going to to be jungle because Snoopy ran it last week. It ended up being, Froggen picking him up in that middle in the middle lane. But now we can see Renekton and Sona once again being picked up. They've given that to Nif. I think he's going to be very, very happy with that pick.
Yeah, and I think people underestimate that fact as well, that if you've got a champion that you're so comfortable on, Froggen and Anivia is probably the best example of that one, doesn't almost matter in some cases. If you feel so confident on it, you're going to pick it whatever's coming your way. There's a Renekton, as you said. We saw it in the North American LCS on Thursday, been used in every single game. It featured last night, I think, as well. It got a little bit late for me, with having to be here today. I had to go to bed halfway through. But we saw it in that last game. Wicked playing Renekton. If Kevin can get half of what, half as good and strong as Wicked did in that last game, it's going to pay off for them.
Yes, so true. Such a scary champion. Elise and Caitlyn is what the Copenhagen Wolves are considering. They are locked in now and secured in there. So, again, they've got this ability to put Elise sort of anywhere. We've seen Elise run in the jungle a couple of times by the Copenhagen Wolves. I think Dragonborns did it about a month and a half ago as well. So, I don't really think it's super possible to be in the jungle, but it's a possibility. And having that Kayle and the Elise there, being able to throw them top lane, mid lane, jungle, SK Gaming will be guessing a little bit, and they've left their mid lane pick until the very, very last one. Ocelot has said, I'm not sure who's going to be there, so let's play this safe, let's lock in the Misfortune, lock in the Jarvan, and we'll counterpick who we think is going to be the most likely mid laner.
And over for SK, they've picked up their AD carry, Misfortune, very, very strong in this patch as well. And the Jarvan, good old Jarvan. I'm guessing going to be in the jungle. Obviously, again, that could switch around. It could be different from that point of view, but I'm imagining that's going to be Hercule Bot actually playing it in the jungle itself. Wolves taking that Caitlyn away from SK Gaming. I mean, as we said earlier, Candy Panda played Twitch and Ezreal last week, but we all know, if you've been watching League of Legends long enough, that Candy Panda's Caitlyn, in fact, Demon used to call Caitlyn Candy Panda most of the time because that's how often and how well he used to play that champion. So always a good thing to take it away from him.
I still remember when Caitlyn was, rising in popularity again with the Season 3 changes. Demon was actually saying, where is Candy Panda? Why is he not playing Caitlyn as much as he used to? But the final lock-in for the Copenhagen Wolves is going to be that Cho'Gath. So most likely going to be Kayle mid, Elise top, Cho'Gath in the jungle. That's going to probably be the setup. We'll see how they decide to do the swaps once Ocelot has picked his champ, because he's going to need to start countering. The Copenhagen Wolves have got a little bit of everything. They've got tank ability, they've got CC, they've got fairly good poke. They've got a well-rounded team comp.
Yeah.
Unlike the last time they faced SK, where they had an almost all-in poke composition. Now they can do a little bit of everything.
And I'm wondering what SK are going to go for here at the end. I mean, you've got Jarvan to lock everyone, and you've got a crescendo, the AoE damage coming out from Renekton, bullet time, of course, from Misfortune. So if all those things come together, that's a lot of power for SK. What are they going to finish off with here in the middle? A Kassadin.
Well, it's not too surprising. He's got good lane presence. He's going to be able to get away from some ganks. He's got great mobility. And if you look at the team, Misfortune, Jarvan, Renekton, they're all damage dealers as well. Jarvan and Renekton are going to build a little bit tanky, so they have the ability to deal, good DPS in these team fights. And it's just going to be up to Ocelot to really just single out a target and pick them off. He's got the Rift Walk to get in and out to some AoE. If they do decide to go super aggressive and super deep, he can go in and hit everybody as well. But more importantly, I think he can just stop, those spell casts from Elise, silence Cho, silence Kayle, get those small, couple of seconds of inability to cast spells, and it's going to swing things in their favor.
So, who do you fancy for this one? In fact, no, you know what? I'm going to go first, because I always ask my co-commentator first who they're going to go for. 9 times out of 10, they say exactly what I want to say and pick my team for the win. So I'm going to go first this time, but I think SK's combination here is very, very strong. If they line it all up, if they're on point in terms of teamwork, I think they can take down Wolves here.
I like their team fight composition. I want to see how they handle it when they don't have their ultimates, though, because that Cataclysm, that bullet time, and Renekton's dominance are very, very important for them. I think they have the ability to win team fights without it, but Cho'Gath, his ulti only gives damage. His Ruptures and Feral Screams, if Svenskeren is on point with those spells, they can single out and blow somebody up. Kassadin, Misfortune, Sona will go down very, very quickly if Elise and Sho jump jump on top of them. So I actually like the Copenhagen Wolves lineup. I like their composition. I think they've got a good mix of survivability and damage. So I'm gonna go opposite here. I think the Wolves are going to surprise everybody in this matchup.
Well, maybe I should have just asked you first then, since we went for different teams in the end anyway. But we are going to be getting into game here shortly. Of course, SK versus Copenhagen Wolves, our second game here in week 2 of the European LCS. Obviously with Wolves over on the blue side, SK is starting on the red side. But my next question coming in for you, quick shot. Level 1, what are we going to see, if anything?
Well, you know, you've got quite a lot of level 1 presence from both of these teams, but I don't think SK are really going to do anything off the wall here. I don't think they have enough crowd control to really put pressure onto the Copenhagen Wolves. So if we see anything, it'll be the Wolves that'll be playing aggressive. Just before this pause came in, you can see SK, they were going very, very defensive on their minimap. They were just covering the entrances to their jungle. And I think in terms of the play, we haven't seen super aggressive level 1s from any team, so I'm not going to be surprised if nothing happens once again.
Yeah, that's almost the sad part that we don't have Meet Makers here, because at level 1 they were always the kings to get something kicking off there, but I'm sure we will see that from others throughout. Actually, the problem seems to be right now that Kevin doesn't have chat. I don't know if he's turned his chat off or moved it out of the screen somewhere or what he's done there. But the Wolves actually talking about the weather here, so that's obviously some kind of mind games going down, trying to catch SK off. But this is a team with you can't even compare the two when it comes to playing at tournaments and the experience that gives you. You just can't compare them. Ocelot, before League of Legends, was winning titles in other games. You've got Nif and Candy Panda, they've been all over the world together. Kevin as well. Hercubot to a lesser extent, but I think the fact that he's with so many experienced players can really carry him through. It looks like the pause is in fact off, so we can jump back into it then and kick things off here in the early stages. As you said, SK looking pretty defensive, got that good old line defense set up across the map.
Yeah, and just making sure they don't get invaded, making sure they don't lose any buffs, and if somebody does move into their jungle, they'll be aware of it and they'll know about it. And you cannot count out how important it is to have that voice of calm and that voice of reason on your team when you've got so many players that have been at so many events and LANs and tournaments, and they're perfectly calm in the situation. It lets you stay calm. It lets you just focus on the job at hand, focus on the game at hand. Let's have a look at the items. Fortitude pot in the top lane for Elise. So going for that in case of emergency, drink Fortitude pot to survive. May be afraid of some early aggression from Kevin's Renekton.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it either. I mean, he's gone for the 9 pots ward start for this one, so wants to make sure that he has that vision, not going to get caught out early by Svenska and getting in there. We could see Ocelot helping out with the Wraiths. On the other side, Hercubot here starting off on the Wolves. Svenska has already taken his Wraiths. It's going to be a red buff start for him.
This is going to be really, really awesome for Kevin. If he can get to level 2, very quickly, he can put some aggression onto Godbro's Elise and just keep him on the back foot. He's got more potions. He's got the ability to sustain with his Q, so he'll just stay in lane and start to stamp some control a little bit earlier on.
So if we look at the AD carries, what have they got in there? Longsword and pots coming out for Kaylin. On the other side, that Doran's Blade, which in this scenario makes perfect sense. You've got that Sonar in there to heal you up. At the end of the day, you've got the on-hit heal as well from that Doran's Blade. And the thing is, with Miss Fortune, because of that early game power that you've got, it can allow you to be that more offensive as well.
It's going to be quite an interesting matchup here, because Caitlyn will be able to outrange Miss Fortune, obviously, but MF with a double up, if she gets some good poke down, it's going to keep the test a little bit low. He's played Ezreal in the past 2 games, and he's picked up now Caitlyn for this matchup, so we'll see how well mechanically he knows Caitlyn. It's a similar sort of style. Their Piltover Peacemaker and the Mystic Shots have got similar sort of ranges, and it's a similar type of champion in that regard. If the test can get ahead, he's the danger man for this matchup, because he is such a powerful AD carry. Once he gets the lead, he can hold on to it. And I think the Copenhagen Wolves are going to need to try and set that up, put some pressure in that bottom lane, and get him into that carry position.
Yeah, really interested to see where the junglers really focus on this game as well, where they're going to try and lock down. Obviously, Jarvan coming out of the jungle has that great, the combo to get the knock up as well. So Coutard has to be the man that needs to be really, really careful about that. And we can see a ward actually just to the south of River put down by him, which means he just knows that he has to be real careful as actually Hercubot is coming through the backside. And this could actually turn out to be a pretty genius move. If Ocelot's seen him put that ward down there and has called that out, that could be what they're going for the setup.
Yeah, really great positional play. They've predicted that ward. They've said, look, the communication is there to say Kautot has most likely not got vision here, and it looks like he's coming in for this gank. Let's see if he can land the CC.
Silence comes down there from Ocelot. Kautot, where is he going? He's taking a risky way. He's going to probably flash over the wall here, or flash away once the flag comes down, and that's exactly what Kautot does. Should be enough to keep him away. Nice, patient, and very, very coordinated play. You know, not rushing, not being scared, but look at Hercubot. It's almost like an instant replay.
He's going to try set up again, exactly like you said. Kautot, 100% aware what's going on, 100% aware of where everybody was, and knowing when to use that flash. Got away from that knock-up combo of Jarvan, but with Svenskeren sniffing around, he doesn't know that Hercubot's there, and Hercubot's found him in the jungle.
He's a level behind him. We can see they're pushing Hercubot and slide his way through. That will actually get him away from the rupture in the end as well. That was just after his blue buff ran out. But look at the damage that's been done in his bottom lane again to the Wolves. Tess having to burn through those pots that he had there. He's got no pots remaining whatsoever. Neither does Lulu. Got 2 wards in their arsenal as well, so they need to be careful. And that's what they're trying to do now. They're trying to alleviate this pressure by pushing Svenskeren down there to trouble them.
Luckily though, even though the pressure is on the Tess, he has not fallen behind in CS, and that's very, very important for him. Even if he's on the back foot, he needs to hold his zone. Hercubot has once again come to camp out Kautot, and there's no flash available for him this time. Will he be able to get to safety?
This is going to be very, very interesting. I'm not surprised. I'm quite surprised there's no rupture coming in. It's Kautot. It's going to get knocked up. There is the first blood coming out. It's Ocelot that picks it up right in the last second before he tries to get away there. And, well, once you run down towards Dragon without a flash, you know you're not getting out.
Yeah, and I wonder why Kautot didn't try to use his teleport. He had it available for a little while. I mean, obviously, if he got knocked up by Jarvan, it would have cancelled it. But now on the bottom lane, the Wolves are in trouble. Double up catches Deficio, but no kills just yet.
Oh, look at the damage coming out there from Nif as well. Power cord just at the right time, but again, not quite enough to take them down. But that, again, will be enough for SK. They'll be happy with the fact that this Caitlyn is now out of lane for a while, gives him that time to free farm without being harassed, and maybe even more importantly, will deny quite a bit as well for the Caitlyn.
Yeah, that is so true. If she can start, you know, if she starts falling behind in terms of levels, in terms of items and farm, it's going to be so, so good for Nif and Candy Panda. Nif currently has no mana though, so we'll probably see them recalling very, very soon. They've just shoved this lane down, and you can see they've got, you know, a decent amount of farm. They've been in lane for 6.5 minutes, and as soon as Sona starts to run low on mana, that's when you need to play aggressive. You know, you need to force her to spend the mana on heals. It prevents her from getting poked down, and obviously if she's low on mana, you can win those engagements. Turn her into a little munchkin, hit her with glitter lance, prevent her running away, and you know, Caitlyn's got a lot of good damage if she can make it stick.
And you just saw SK actually going home for a round of buying there. Look how many wards they picked up. Actually 5 wards, plus a pink ward as well for Sona. So they really want to get a commanding position here for that. I'm guessing for Dragon at this stage of things, they want to make sure that that vision is there, on obviously on all fronts, to stop the Svenskeren getting in there, getting involved, as they are going to try and pin down this Elise in the top lane. Hercubot actually stood on top of a ward here. You can see he's just starting to recall. Either way, Godbro got complete vision of him.
Yeah, he knows exactly what's going on. He's not going to overextend further than he needs to. Does still have that flash. In the middle lane, Kautot is jumping onto Ocelot, going to carry on chasing, and Ocelot's just going to walk away. Didn't even use his Rift Walk there to get to safety.
Yeah, just walk away from it. And we know from past events, Kassadin, not really a new champion into the league, and we've seen Ocelot play him so often in the past. He is a very accomplished Kassadin player. We are seeing Hercubot again coming towards this middle lane. Kautot going to get silenced up. We do have Svenskeren in there. The knockup comes onto Kautot. He's already used the intervention, and now are they going to be able to chase Hercubot down? No, more a case of just being safe.
Yeah, the rupture will completely miss there. Didn't manage to catch absolutely anybody, and Kautot maybe a little bit defensive there. Hercubot was not level 6, did not have Cataclysm just yet, and Ocelot was backing away, so he burned intervention. Fair enough, better safe than sorry, but I don't think it was absolutely necessary. You know, Hercubot wasn't going to be able to jump on him with that Cataclysm and follow it up, as Godbro's been caught up by Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin just slicey dicing his way away And now we have 3 men trying to steal away this red buff, but Hercubot coming in from the side. He's going to get hit very hard. Kautard is going to take him down. Ocelot's down to below half HP as well. He cannot afford to be sticking around for this one. And Wolves with a successful invasion just about there, Ocelot. Svenskeren actually getting it in the end. Actually, no, it was Godbro that got it in the end, sorry. But either way, they've got a kill and they've taken the red buff. That's nothing but success for Wolves.
A very, very good coordinated invade. That's exactly what we were talking about a little bit earlier on. You know, the Copenhagen Wolves, they have the ability to win individually. They have the ability to make these plays in these early game moments. The question is, can they still do it once we hit this team phase? Can they still do it once the towers are down and once they start pushing those lanes? With Godbro having red buff, it's definitely going to help him against Kevin in this top lane.
Now Svenskeren taking, or at least starting off his blue buff. Kale going to be coming across for that one. Hercubot actually just took the blue for SK's side of things. Obviously, Ocelot saying, I don't need no blue buff. My cooldowns are low enough for me all right now. Obviously does have the Tira and the Catalyst in there as well, so that helps out in terms of how much mana he's going to be able to hold onto himself. This bottom lane continues to be a lot of pressure for SK. You can see the pink wards down from either side in their respective bushes. And bang level on CS, 80 to 80 there or thereabouts. We've got a Brutalizer actually first picked up here by Candy Panda. Vamp Scepter on the other side for Caitlyn.
You know what, if Jarvan does come to gank this bottom lane, and with the Crescendo, with the Cataclysm, with the Bullet Time and that Brutalizer, it's going to hit very, very hard. So it's a very aggressive opening to the matchup. You tend to see MMFs going either the Brutalizer or that Vamp Scepter first, but with having Sona in your lane, he's got the sustain. He's got the ability to heal up, got the ability to stay relatively healthy. And to be very fair, the Wolves haven't really been playing the champion game. The Test is happy to sit back and just farm under his tower, has been keeping up and remaining even, but we haven't seen them going too aggressive onto Nif or Candy Panda throughout the entirety of this first 10 minutes.
Let's have a look at the items in that top lane. 84 to 70 CS, by the way, in favor of Kevin right now. He's got the Hex Drinker in there. On the other side, Tira the Goddess, plus that Giant's Belt. So already a pretty tanky Elise. Not going to be easy for Kevin to take her down instantly. Bottom lane is still very even, as we see Nigodbro and Kevin actually going head-to-head. There's a repel use, but Kevin able to walk away.
Didn't even use his Dominus. Ultimate was still available, so if he needed that spike in HP, he would have had it. And don't forget, Hex Drinker is available as well. Hercubot and Ocelot are sniffing the blood of Svenskeren, and the question is, do they have what it takes to pick up the kill?
Well, he's missed his combo there, which was pretty much the opening that they would have had if they could have gotten a Svenskeren. Well, just put down the Feral Scream onto them, but again, not really too much to write home about. Ocelot just rift walked away just to make sure he was safe from that. But look at the damage that SK have done onto this bottom tower, and willing to bet there's actually no damage being done to the SK tower in this bottom lane by now, and that just shows the pressure that they've put on.
Yeah, Hercubot is moving around the back here. He's going to steal away those double golems, and if this next wave they decide to go aggressive, either picking up a kill, a flash Crescendo comes out, the Wolves have been locked up.
This is bad news for Wolves, and we can see Hercubot on that backside. Where they're going, straight in towards the Tex. He goes down to Candy Panda. Teleport is coming down into this bottom lane, but honestly, I don't think they can do anything about it. Ocelot had come down there as well. The ward in that Tribush able to warn them off early enough, but Wolves were just a little bit too slow to react to that.
Yeah, they needed that teleport a little bit quicker. As soon as that Crescendo went down is when it would have maybe been able to turn the tide. But a great Crescendo once again from Nif. We said at the beginning of the game, we said how important and how invaluable that ultimate is, and he sets his carry up to pick up the first kill for Candy Panda.
This top lane looks like Nigodbro now that he's got that Giant Spell in there and is a lot healthier, is starting to cause a few little issues for Kevin in this top lane. Kevin still does have that CS lead. Not much of one. You can see how defenses are having to be in there with a full HP Elise harassing him away. He's finding it difficult to get in there for that CS, as well as a Cocoon actually is going to land here. Kevin could be in trouble.
He's going to be able to back away, though. A stun onto Nigodbro takes one tower hit, and he's immediately just backing off. But there's neurotoxins, Q after Q after Q. It's just chunking down Kevin. And again, Kevin didn't even use Dominus. He's being very, very passive, very, very smart with his ultimate, and he's saving it for when he absolutely needs it, as Kautard gets jumped on.
Hercubot coming in, he's going to land. No, he's not quite going to land it. Kautard flashes backwards towards his tower anyway. That was an interesting turn of events. Did have his ultimate ready and waiting if he'd have needed it. In the end, decides not, and then this bottom lane again, we are seeing the pressure coming down, that double up going onto the Test, and look at that, that's pretty much all damage damage from Nif there, apart from that double up at the end. That just shows you the power of this SK lane 13.5 minutes in.
And Deficio being a little bit slow with those help picks commands. You know, as soon as Sona's moving forward, if he'd thrown that shield up just a tiny bit earlier, it could have possibly helped out in terms of preventing some of that damage. Once again, Hercubot and Svenskeren just sniffing around this middle lane. They've been trying to set stuff up the entire time, but Kautar's defensive flashes have been on point. He's gotten away from 2 of those EQ combos from Jarvan, and it's saved his life in both particular events.
Yeah, and I think, as we kind of expected from this one, a fairly passive game. I mean, we've seen Hercubot camping so much in this middle lane, and that's the thing. Kautar, once that flashes down, is actually in quite a dangerous position. Yes, he has the intervention, but will it really be enough when you've got Jarvan there, who can knock him up and then pin him in with a Cataclysm? And also Ocelot, who's going to be one of the best chases in the game, and escapers, as we see there, with that Rift walk away.
Yeah, just what gets to safety. He's seen Svenskeren coming up and just, you know, throws the ultimate, puts some distance between him. He still even had a flash available, so in case of emergency, he can Rift Walk and flash and cover about half the lane's distance in, you know, a matter of seconds. So good play out of Ocelot. He's actually got a CS lead at the moment against Kayle, which is very, very impressive as a Kassadin. It's notoriously difficult to, you know, CS at the early levels, but to be fair, Kayle is technically a melee champion with the ability to go range from time to time. So, you know, it sort of makes life a little easier for Kassadin.
Right now, Godbro is going to be pushing this top turret once again. It's on around about half HP with Kevin coming in. Didge managed to just dodge that cocoon, but you can see, I mean, he's got no extra damage in there, no extra AP, Godbro currently, and he's doing good chunks of damage to Kevin, who's come back with this giant spell, and it's just a case of chipping down for Godbro.
It's going to make those neurotoxins a little bit more powerful, you know, having more HP. Okay, fair enough, he's going to survive more damage, but each of the Qs in Spider and in human form will be hitting for harder because of the higher base HP. But, you know, it all turned from that kill in the jungle where Godbro was able to steal the red buff away, came back into lane with that red buff, and just started to take control of the matchup. Kevin is still farming well as SK have started this dragon, so he's not falling behind, but you definitely feel like Godbro is setting the pace in that top lane matchup.
That was a very nice dragon takedown as well from SK. Candy Panda and Nif starting things off. Hercubot came in. Lulu sticking a ward down in the back, but not really doing what they wanted. You can see there the pings going down, and Kevin actually backing right off this tower in the top lane. Svenskeren was coming around, so in the end, the call that needed to be made there from Kevin to back away is now finally fallen behind in his creep score. And if we look at the turrets, 0-1, now still a fairly passive, slow game.
Yeah, very, very true. SK are now, they've thrown their AD carry and support into that middle lane to try put as much pressure as possible. Hercubot is going to be able to flash over the wall, finds himself a choke, gets feasted up, will go down to one more Righteous Fury swipe from Kautar as Kevin's under pressure.
Kevin is under pressure. Godbro going to dive onto him. He flashes away. Ocelot comes in. Oh, he couldn't quite get away from it. I thought Kevin had escaped an inevitable death there, but, well, Ocelot came in, picked up the kill himself, but now Wolves may be able to take down this outer turret in the middle lane. It's down to below half. Yeah, there's nothing they can do. Rupture actually did land onto Sona. Silence comes in as well. Candy Panda has come across to cover it, but Wolves, despite getting that 1-for-1 trade in the top lane, have done a great job to get in. There's a crescendo. Bullet time coming across. Ultimate onto Kautar himself. He is going to survive. Ulti comes out of Kayle. Wolves are very, very low here. Flash has been burnt all over the place. They're going to make a run for it, but Ocelot's not finished just yet as he rift walks in the shield, just about saving Kautar. The slow comes into Ocelot, and look how low they all are.
What a good Rupture. The Rupture knocking Nif up in there. He was low on mana. If he got in range for another Q and power chord, maybe could have got a kill. Copenhagen Wolves making a huge play there. They trade 2 for 1. They get the middle lane tower and do not give up any more kills while retreating. If Godbro can save this tower, it's going to be perfect, but I don't think he's going to be able to. Well, actually, SK start to back away as Kautar teleports in. He gets one, sticks onto Candy Panda, exhaust is out, make it rain, slowing him down. The movement speed buff onto Candy Panda. Is Strut going to come up in time? That's the question. Movement speed plus one more swipe, and Kautar gets a kill. 2 more kills for Kautar. That is how you use teleports.
Yeah, that is how you've got to use teleport if it's in your arsenal. He gets himself straight back in. Credit as well has to go to NeGodBro on Elise for managing to hold that middle tower long enough that SK thought, okay, we can take this slowly but surely. Okay, we can't, and we're actually taking damage. And then Cowtard comes in from the side. Ocelot thought it was safe. Riff walking away from the spider, but that just wasn't enough for him in the end. And Wolves even managing to turn around and taking out half the damage, half the health away from that top turret as well.
Now, this is what we've seen the Copenhagen Wolves not doing last week. They had an advantage last week as now Oslo is teleported in the mid lane. The intervention comes out from Cowtard. He's under pressure. Will he go down?
What a rupture again. Kevin and Nif knocked in the air. That could be enough, and it will in fact be enough to keep them safe. And that's two brilliant ruptures in a row in important situations for Svenskeren. NeGodBro, in the meantime, we talked about him defending in that middle lane. Now he's turned that into an attacking notion and has taken down the second turret of the game for Copenhagen Wolves.
Brilliant passage of play here for the Wolves. They've not only, picked up kills, they've picked up towers, they put pressure all over the map, and they've evened up. They've actually taken the gold score lead right now. SK Gaming are going to be thinking, what is going on here? The game has been so tight and so close, but now the Wolves have turned the pressure on, and the psychological effect starts coming in. SK are going to be thinking, well, how do we react to this? What do we do? What went wrong? That mid-defense where GodBro was, engaged 1v4, it's pretty apparent that there was a call. Cowtard would have said, I'm going to teleport mid, I'm teleporting mid, and he just stuck around and went a little bit deep. I got a bit scared because I thought if they jump on GodBro, he's going to get shut down. But as soon as I thought that, you see Cowtard coming in from the back and picks up some kills. He's 4-1 at the moment, and a Kayle that's fed is very, very scary.
But that is only the Kayle really that's in there. Obviously, Elise has got one as well. There's 0-1-0 Caitlyn, which we talked about earlier on, that she's probably going to become going in towards that late game. Obviously, in the middle game is not really her speciality, her strong point. But the later we go, the harder she's going to be hitting. The problem is she's not really had any of that action to give her that little bit of a boost that you can really do with actually Caitlyn 20 minutes into the game. But this is a really important time for those kills to come down as well for Copenhagen Wolves because he's been so close. It allows them, after that little spike of getting the kills in there, to go in and pick up some good items to come back for the next fight and try and snowball that advantage that they've made.
And to be very fair as well, we have not seen a full 5-on-5 team fight from SK Gaming here. We've seen a good crescendo and a bullet time laid on top of it, but that was a 3 versus 4. That was just Ocelot, Candy Panda, and Nif picking the fight. Candy Panda is, going to be facing against 4 members of Wolves, but that rapture misses, and he gets to safety. But Ocelot is waiting in the wings. Will we see that, ultimate combo right now?
Here we go. They are going to go in there, and it all does pile up. But Wolves, they've tanked through that initial damage. Can they turn it around and pick up kills of their own here? Nif going very aggressive. Ocelot goes in, will shut down Kayle, but Elise has joined the fight. Deficio will die, and Ocelot actually getting a double kill there just before he dies, and that was a vital one for him. It's a 2-for-1 in favor of SK, but will they be able to hold this turret?
We'll see if they can. They are defending with 4 members, though, relatively low on HP. The call is not to, because there's not enough HP, so they just start to back away. You have to think if you're Wolves, yeah, you lost the team fight, you lost an extra player, but you got the tower, and towers are always more important than kills. It's going to give you more gold, it's going to give you more map presence, and they haven't stopped the aggression. Cocoon goes up, just misses Nif. That was so close to that Sona.
Dragon is up in 7 seconds time. Wolves are in position. They've got a pink ward down. They saw Jarvan coming in from that top side. And once that Dragon actually comes up and into play, they'll be able to get involved for this one. SK are in the near area, though, so this is definitely not a one-sided thing, as Svenskeren looking to get a rupture in there over the top, and actually will land it in position. Didn't quite get in onto that blue buff, which was picked up, if my eyes don't deceive me. It's on Ocelot there. Bit hard to see with the casting with his purple particles around him on the bottom. But Wolves, they are there in that area. Dragon is available, and if they could pick this Dragon up, that would be a massive 5 to 7 minutes for them in this game.
And crucially for them at this point in time, Cataclysm and Crescendo is not available, so they want to try pick a fight while they've got this power position. They don't have the creeps to push this middle lane, so the Copenhagen Wolves have decided to take Dragon, as SK thought they were going to push the middle lane, but there was no Wolves creeps there, so the Wolves made the right decision, started to back away. The trading damage back and forth. GodBro doesn't really have a lot of ability power right now, so he's just working off his base statistics for that DPS.
one thing that Wolves need to fix here is that middle tower is completely open for the taking for SK, and we know losing a Dragon for that middle outer turret can be worth it in most cases. That extra vision that you get, you can see that SK actually putting a pink ward down in the middle lane, which was spotted and swiftly dealt with by a pink ward from Copenhagen Wolves as well. But let's have a look at the overall picture, because it's been coming thick and fast in these last few minutes. 3-2 in tower kills, 32.3 to 31.4 thousand gold. A very, very close game. You can see there the differences. 1,000 gold extra for Caitlyn over Misfortune. Actually just about 150 extra for Kale in that middle lane over Ocelot. They've got bang on the same score. That bit of extra CS, and that's what you see from the extra tower from the Dragon from earlier. That's really helping him out. Big shopping round being done here as well from the players. We can see their extras being picked up. Haunting Guys on Elise Plus. Those the Sorcerer's Boots for that super penetration that she's going to have. Same coming out for Kale as well. There's a Last Whisper on Caitlyn being picked up. Misfortune finishing off that Bloodthirst as we get a pause. That allows me to talk about the items more, I suppose. And Ocelot here working his way up towards that Abyssal Scepter, just picking up his Negatron Cloak. So overall, some very interesting phase of this game, because like you said, a 5 versus 5 fight we've not 100% seen. I mean, down in that bottom one, Ocelot came in right at the very end to mop up. He wasn't all pile in and go for it, although you have to give him the credit of Crescendo, Cataclysm, Bullet Time were all in the right place. But I said it before, I think they pretty much tanked through that major amount of damage. But then they had Ocelot to come in and really deal it.
They did, and they were able to tank through it with the use of their ultimates. They used their intervention and the wild growth to survive a lot of that damage and keep themselves going. So, yes, they did well to survive it, but they still lost the team fight. If there was not a tower there, as an objective to continue, pushing, and SK felt a little bit more confident after losing Ocelot, maybe, picking a further fight 4 versus 3, they may have had the ability to mop up more. So if we can find, Kevin jumping in a little bit thicker, I also believe that was a 4 versus 5. If I recall correctly, Kevin only joined that, fight at the tower fairly late. Renekton did not dive into the Cataclysm, didn't have his Dominus running. So that's another big chunk of that, 5-man team fight potential, which SK will really want to get going in their favor. In terms of playing the objectives and playing the map, Copenhagen Wolves, I feel, have been doing a slightly better job than SK. They've pushed lanes a little harder, they've pushed dragons, they've picked fights on their terms a little more. But in the team fights, SK Gaming have been winning those engagements. So it'll be interesting to see who can pull ahead and who can actually win this sort of mid-game phase of the matchup.
Well, it looks like Deficio has reconnected back into the game. You can see the admins there behind him, giving him the assistance that he needs to fix any of those problems. But it looks like we should be able to get ready again in this one. Yep, the team's just asking if each other are ready, and we are going to be getting back into this game. So let's have a look again exactly where we are. 23 minutes, 50 seconds in. 6-5 in kills in favor of the Copenhagen Wolves. 33.3 to 32.4. 1,000 gold lead only in favor, as I say that. We're not quite ready, it seems, in favor of Copenhagen Wolves. And I think it is Deficio again who's having a few little issues.
And this is difficult for the Wolves. We said at the very beginning of the matchup, it's a team that's been together for a long time. They've been around. They've known each other for ages. I believe they used to play in the Winfact name many, many moons ago. They competed at DreamHack with many other players together. And the question is now they've come into this match. They've been doing very well. And even though they're all smiles, how much is this going to break the momentum? How much is this going to break the flow of the game? They build themselves up. The adrenaline gets pumping. You get excited. You get pushing the lanes. Will they be able to bounce back from this matchup or from this pause and have that same level of intensity and focus? Well,
that's one thing that you can only speculate really about pauses, and we almost bring this point up every time that one happens mid-game, 24 minutes in this case, that for the team that's winning, it can be a bad thing. So you get knocked off it, especially if it's you that's having the problems there. In this case, obviously, it is Deficio, the support player from Copenhagen Wolves, who's having some PC problems. From SK's side of things, it can work the opposite way. It can give them time to say, this is where we are, this is what they've got, this is what we've got, this is what we need to do. And it can give them that extra boost coming in. So the few minutes after the pause, obviously we're going to see how, if at all, this affects them. But you can see that both teams staying very, very focused. There's no alt-tabbing out of the game and checking the internet as you go and stuff like that. It's staying in game, making sure that your teammates know exactly where you are in the game, keeping the spirits high there. You can see the testers having a bit of a laugh, staring someone out, I guess, by the that gesture there to someone.
I can see you. I'm watching you. I'm watching you. You know, SK Gaming, it's the picture of focus. Ocelot is, you know, obviously talking to his team. Let's look at this. What about this? What about that? And, you know, stern, serious faces from the SK Gaming roster. You know, the lead man, Ocelot, you know, laying down the law a little bit maybe.
Well, the thing is, they've beaten Copenhagen Wolves once already so far in the European LCS. They are 0 for 2 in the league. SK are 2 for 1. They're in a great position after their victory last week as well over EG. You know, they're in a great position overall in the league, and this is a fixture. And we talk about it in other sports as well. These top teams, top of the table teams who you're expecting at the end of the season to be fighting for the crown against a team who you would probably be expecting, more likely, without any offence to Copenhagen Wolves, to be battling against relegation. They're the games that a championship team has to win every single time, because if you don't, they're the points that you kind of bank on going forward. Whereas, you know, when they play against EG, against Gambit, against Fnatic, those games can go either way. They're not quite safe enough to say, okay, we get our points from there and there and there, and if we beat EG twice here and we beat Gambit twice there, then we can win. So this is a really important game, actually, for SK.
And, you know, on the other side of the coin, the Copenhagen Wolves, they've learned from their mistakes. You know, they're coming into this exactly as they're almost the underdog, so they have the ability to surprise. They have the ability to be the upstart team that can, you know, topple this old stalwarts of the League of Legends teams and whatnot. They're doing very, very well, and it's very apparent that they've really thought about what went wrong last week. You know, they're 0-2 right now. They lost in picks and bans the last time they played SK Gaming. They were talking about it a number of times throughout the last couple of days and saying, look, we need to think more. We need to step away from the game and really theory craft, really understand what went wrong, why it went wrong, and how do we fix it. And, you know, for the most part, it's very promising for a new team like this to see how well they're doing against a battle-hardened and seasoned SK.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of the LCS being that season-long format. 28 games apiece in the first half of the season already, up until around about May time. You get better. You get better as you go along. You learn from week 1 to week 2 what went wrong there, what went right there. Obviously, you want to keep in mind as well. And you can change as a team the further you go through the season. Obviously, for Copenhagen Wolves, it's even bigger of a thing because they're not playing with their full lineup right now. They've got Bjergsen kind of waiting, no doubt so annoyed that he can't play right now, kicking things in his room, watching the stream, no doubt, and saying, I want to be there. I want to be that guy sitting in the middle and being able to, you know, change the outcome of this game. For SK's side of things, though, they stay very, very focused. That's, I think, a very, very much from Ocelot's side of things that he says, stay focused, guys. You've got to stay on this one. You see not one of them alt-tabbing out. It's a lot of them pressing tab to look down the scoreboard to analyze what what's going on item-wise in the game. They've got plenty of time to talk about that one. I'm hoping that Deficio's stuff is getting fixed. I can't quite see his screen, but
I think it's his reconnect.
I can see his reconnect screen. He's just pressed the button. So Deficio should be getting into the game here within the next couple of seconds, and we should be able to get this one back underway. See the test just sticking his earphones back in as well. So hopefully we've got a resolve to any problem there, and we will be able to finish off this game without any more interruptions, because so far it's a nail-biter. Close stuff, 24 minutes in, still up for grabs for either team. Yeah,
it's gone back and forth the entire time. Both teams have had really, really good moments, and both teams have created opportunities. It's not a matchup like a comedy of errors. You know, this is teams that have made plays happen. They've created opportunities for themselves, and they've converted it to kills, to towers, to dragons, etc. So it does look like Deficio's back, and we're hoping his computer holds up and we can get this match underway. And as you say, we've rejoined the action. Shall we summarize this once more? 6-5 in kills, 24 minutes on the clock, 33,000 gold apiece, 3 towers to 2, and Copenhagen Wolves, what can they do now?
That's a good question. I'm really interested to see how this one all pans out. Could happen for us in the next 10 minutes. Could happen in the next 30 minutes. Who quite knows at this level how long those games are going to be taking? And Svenskeren there with a pink ward will clear out around Baron. And that's a bit of a power play as well, because it forces SK to come away from an area where they don't have that tower behind them to gain that vision back. You can see Nif going in. They've put one ward in the back of that Baron pit as well to make sure they're safe on that front. But overall, I think we're going to see quite a passive 5 minutes. I mean, I hope I'm proved wrong from a spectator's point of view, and it's going to be a crazy 5 minutes. But I think both of these teams are going to want to get back into the groove of the game after that 10-minute pause and really find their footing again.
Yeah, they need to find the right gear. You know, the car stalled, and now they've just turned the engine back on, stuck themselves into drive, and now just trying to get back into rhythm of it.
And for God's sake, don't hit reverse.
One thing that I am noticing and looking at right now, you were talking about the wards. Look at the vision from the Copenhagen Wolves. You know, there's a pink ward in the middle lane. You've got full river entrances towards their Wraith, towards the Dragon Hearth. Pink wards up near the Baron. SK Gaming have only got a couple of wards on the map, and actually very interesting lane wards down at the Tri-Bush, down towards the bottom lane, because of course of the pressure on that bottom lane tower. But the Wolves have turned the heat on, and they want this mid-inner turret.
Yeah, looks like they're not messing around, are they? They've come straight back into this one. Damage down again, using the poke that they've got coming out of Elise, out of Caitlyn. The Rupture being thrown in there as well. We'll see if they can manage to siege down this inner turret in this middle lane. I mean, that'd be a big win for them if they can have this turret away. We are going to see actually Candypan taking a lot of damage. Great move from Kevin, slice and dicing his way in there to block that one. Good Rupture comes across the entire team, and that's enough for Wolves to take the inner turret.
Landing skill shot after skill shot. The cocoon onto Candy Panda made him panic. He burned his barrier, so if they decide to jump on him again, if he gets caught out by a Rupture, he's going to be in trouble. Godbro throws out that cocoon once again, very tentative, just trying to find something, making it happen. But in this mid-game, Svenskeren has been on point with those Ruptures every single time. He saved his teammates twice. Cocoon almost catching Nif there. And now, one good Rupture allowed them to secure the inner turret, and the Wolves haven't stopped the pressure yet.
Yep, they are keeping pushing on. There's another brilliant Rupture from Svenskeren. Gets the silence across a good couple of them as well. And that's the danger that SK face here. If the Rupture lands into the Cocoon all the other way around, that's a lot of time for one man, obviously, from the Cocoon to be out of the fight. If Wolves decide, okay, this is it, we turn on the pressure right now, we're going to go for it after this one. Ocelot actually headed down south towards his blue buff. That is up and available for the taking. Candy Panda just going to be helping him out with that one, but it looks like Wolves going to go back, have a bit of a shopping time here, and we're going to get back into a bit more of a farming phase, get a bit more cash on board and get some more items.
Well, this is something that I was looking at as that siege was happening. You know, the Wolves, they were very, very intelligent, very smart with how they play. They said, look, let's play aggressive, get the tower, and then, well, let's carry on pushing. We've got this bit of momentum, so let's keep it on. And they've got some good ward coverage as well. So, they had vision on the map. The problem that they had is their lanes weren't pushing. So as soon as one creep wave got up, you could see both the top and the bottom lanes. The creeps of SK Gaming was pushing onto their towers, and they were forced to fall back and defend it. SK Gaming immediately have turned around. You can see up in the top lane, Kevin is shoving creeps down. You can see in the bottom lane, the creeps are starting to amass again. SK's map control is just a little bit stronger right now, and the Wolves will need to get that rhythm, that flow of it in their favor if they want to try and make those prolonged sieges work.
Kautar just about coming in there to save that tower in the top lane. Almost falling. He's going to want to stick around a little bit because you can bet your bottom dollar that Kevin will come back in if he realizes that Kautar has in fact back away, which, well, he hasn't up until now. Muramana now is finished up for Elise, along with that Haunted Guys. There's a Runic Bulwark being picked up by Cho'Gath. Giant spell as well for him, so really helping out the team with that Bulwark and also himself with that Giant spell. He's going to be nice and tanky going forward in terms of the AD carries. Phantom Dancer now added into the Bloodthirster Last Whisper combo that Caitlyn had. He's a good 50 CS ahead there is the test. He's done a great job with that one. Black Cleaver and the Bloodthirster on the side of Candy Panda. Abyssal Scepter is also finished here for Ocelot's Kassadin, and also the Warmogs on Renekton as well. Dragon Bean started off. Teleport going to come down.
Yeah, so you see Kautar coming in with those Home Guard boots. He's got that massive speed boost, and Godbro was just able to completely solo them away. Just throws out a couple of spiderlings, tosses out the cocoons, and SK just decide not to challenge for it. They give it up for free, and I wonder if they're just not confident in their team fight potential right now. They were a little tentative, they didn't start an engagement early, and they've got a really good initiation from Renekton and from Jarvan, so questionable decision for me as to why they didn't challenge that.
Yeah, I think the problem is positioning for SK. They've got a very positioning-based team that needs to be in the right place at the right time and, well, hitting the right buttons at that time as well. So maybe it's a case of calling out, okay, leave the dragon, let that one go. We're good for now. Let's fight later. You can see here Ocelot waiting in the wings. If he needs to come in, will do. As a Cocoon will actually land in there on towards Nif, but Wolves unable to really follow that one up with too much damage. You can see that SK, they're able to clear out these waves pretty quickly, which is causing a few problems for the Wolves in terms of getting those hits onto the tower. It's lost about a third of its health with this next wave. Obviously, the test there, AD carry, obviously, he's going to be the one that just goes in there, gets a couple of hits off, they wait for the next wave, and that's going to obviously take time to really push through, but they'll be able to do it in the end, as we do see once again another rupture landing from Svenskeren, who's in a tanky enough position to actually take hits from the turret, and that could be a big thing for them if they're to take this turret down.
And this time around, their creep waves are pushing both the top and the bottom lane, so the longer they stall here, the longer they bait out this time from SK Gaming, the easier it's going to be for them to take more inhibitor turrets, or inner turrets rather. If those creeps get up to the top or the bottom line, you'll see the Wolves will just peel away from this turret. They'll be happy not taking it because they can take one of the inner turrets as Nif eats yet another rupture. The amount of backline interruption that rupture offers is just really, really huge right now.
But they're unable to follow it through. That's the problem I think the Wolves are having. You can't say anything bad about Svenskeren, and he's landed such a high percentage of those ruptures in these cases. I mean, maybe you'd argue it's not the hardest position to be landing them either, but still, he's doing that, and that's the big thing. More wards cleared out as they are put over the top of the wall. Another wave of creeps coming in, and again, SK are able to force them away, but not going for any engagement. Ocelot Rift walking over. Here we go, they're going to go in.
There's the Cataclysm into the bullet time. So much damage has gone down. Immediately remove the test from the fight, and that's a big chunk of the damage. The silence flies across half the map, catches Kaltard out before or after the intervention is out, and they're on the run back. Ocelot Rift walks in, puts the force pulse down, slows Lulu. She cannot get away. Godbro's knocked up in the air, and Hercubot carries on chasing Ocelot with another on point. Riftwalk goes over the wall. Triple kill for Ocelot, leading the team from the front in a great, four-man kill. Turn their attention to Baron. SK are going to pick this one up.
And that's exactly what I was talking about in terms of position there. Wolves committed themselves a little bit too much. SK saw their opportunity. Ocelot had come in from the side, already done the damage that he needed to do, and they followed through with everything that they needed after that. And that's going to allow them to have this Baron away. Cho'Gath is not in any kind of position to really stop that from happening. He's only actually by his middle inhibitor currently, and that is going to be SK retaking the lead in terms of gold in kills. Not in turrets as of yet, but we just saw that when they fight on their terms, at their point, when they say go, it worked out for them. And that's something that must be scary for Wolves now.
And I just think the Wolves, they hung around a little too long. During that fight, they had a massive 2.5, 3 creep wave worth of minions down on this bottom lane. And I was expecting them to just back away. I was expecting them to run bottom, pick up the tower and back away. But instead, they stayed there, they got collapsed upon, and they don't have the ability to deal with that Cataclysm and with that Crescendo. I think 3 or 4 of them got locked up by both. And a full channel on bullet time with Black Cleaver shreds all of the armor. Any damage that Renekton and Jarvan are going to be dealing will just be, ramped up even more, because outside of that runic bulwark, there's not too much armor, on the side of the majority of the Copenhagen Wolves.
And that's the hard position as well for Wolves that they're in. You saw they're sieging the tower, but do they risk tanking it with Cho'Gath or with Elise even, I guess, could get in there for that as well? Because they know that if they do tank that, you've got Cho'Gath right at the front, and they're going to dive straight behind him in towards that back line and the AD carry. So I think it's a real hard position for Wolves to be in right now in terms of when do they go in, how aggressive can they afford to be when you've got the likes of Jarvan who's going to slide right to the back, you've got the slice and dice from Renekton to get in there. Ocelot, well, he goes where he pleases, doesn't he? And then the flash crescendo coming out of Nif as well. So it's really, really difficult at this stage of the game, I think, for Wolves to say this is the time. And if they get it wrong, again, I think it could be You know, one time too many.
You know, they've got this composition as well that they have to pick somebody off. Elise, single target for the most part. It's got to jump and get those percentages up. You know, Cho'Gath gets a feast onto somebody. Yeah, Kaltot's Kale is going to have splash damage, but he's going to put that Reckoning down. Almost got that death cap completed with Leandri's Torment and that Nash's. They need to blow somebody up quickly, and it has to be either Ocelot or Candy Panda. Ocelot goes forward. Svenskaren's very, very tanky, and I mean, if you look at it, he's only got a Giant Spelt in that Runic Bulwark, but Ocelot's not doing as much damage to him as you'd actually expect for a 7-2 Kassadin.
Yeah, the problem is, though, it does a ton of damage to everyone else.
Yeah.
It's like, well, Svenskeren, you're very tanky, great. You're going to feast, you're going to nom someone.
But that's
and
it.
You've got that bit of crowd control in there with the knock-up and with your silence. But after that, you might be in a little bit of trouble if you can't, like, as you said, burst that one target down that they're at this point finding it very hard to pick off, to get in onto, because Miss Fortune's going to be nowhere near the front, and when she is near the front, it's going to be because the rest of the team's crowd controlled.
We'll see if they're going to pick an engagement here. They locked up Kevin, put a bit of poke down on him, but it hasn't done too much. The Reckoning did hit pretty hard, and now that the Tess is here, his 320 CS Caitlyn will definitely help turn the tides of this battle. They need to keep the Tess alive. The wild growth and that intervention needs to go onto the Tess to keep her landing those auto attacks after auto attacks after auto attacks, and ideally it has to be on either Candy Panda or Ocelot, because you know, Hercubot and Kevin have just got so much armor and so much health right now, it's going to be difficult to chunk them and burst them down.
There's a dragon being picked up. Wolves headed north towards the Baron side of things, as we are going to see those minions streaming in towards the middle. Obviously, they didn't manage to take down that inhibitory Candy Panda here. Going to get a much-needed bit of farm down this bottom lane. Obviously, there's a considerable amount behind that of Caitlyn. He's currently 115 in kills, deaths, assists compared to the 120. So neither AD carry really having too much luck in terms of picking up the kills in these games. But again, he almost doesn't need to, as long as he's doing damage in there. You've got Ocelot, who's obviously been the cleanup crew in these fights that we've seen. 7-2-0. He just waits off to the side. His positioning until now has been really good. He just waits until he knows he can come right in there, gets the E off, and slows and destroys everyone in front of him.
And every single team fight, Copenhagen Wolves have survived the burst. Every single team fight, they've survived the Cataclysm, they've survived the bullet time, and they've started to run away. And it's during that time that Ocelot just comes in. So, you know, we said it right at the beginning of the game. Okay, Kassadin's got picked up. They've got all this AoE, but it's because that's the composition. They've thought it out. They've planned it out. Get as much DPS down as you can, and while retreating, you're not going to outrun a Kassadin. His Riftwalk is great distance. It's got a good cooldown. He's got that blue buff up. It's going to be almost impossible for him to run out of mana while chasing you down. And because you've been chunked by Jarvan, by Renekton, by MF's ulti, it's so easy just to clean house. So really well thought out team composition from SK, and they're playing it to perfection.
Caitlyn gone for the Warmogs now finished as well, and that's what we were talking about. Tess is going to be instrumental if they want to win this game, and as such needs more health, needs that survivability when the fights come in. We can see there 2 minutes now until that Baron does come up. SK obviously got the timer right down. I don't think the Wolves actually had vision of that one as well. If obviously I'm saying I don't think so because I wasn't 100% sure if they had any wards around there. I don't think they did, so they won't know exactly when that one's going to come up, but they're going to have to challenge, I think, for this next one.
Yeah, for sure. The game is slowly slipping into SK's control now. They've got map control, they have item control, they've got team fight control. So the Copenhagen Wolves need to get some objectives back under their belt on their side of the coin. They see that Ocelot was on the bottom lane, but teleport is available if they do jump onto him. So, you know, even if they do pick a fight, they've got to be very mindful of that ability and mindful of that possibility. The one thing that SK have done really well after winning that previous engagement is the amount of vision they have in the Copenhagen Wolves territory. Look at those little red dots on your minimap. They have complete vision of all of the entrances to the jungle, to the lanes. They know what's going on, and SK are trying to set up a bit of a siege here in this bottom turret.
Yeah, Kevin actually just pushing this middle lane through as well. Svenskeren forced to come across to play that one off. 45 seconds until the Baron comes up. You've got a 4,300 gold lead currently for SK Gaming. They've got a couple of wards down in that top side of the jungle. As I say, that Candy Panda actually putting one down of his own, so they're going to have a real stranglehold in terms of the vision of that top side. And with 30 seconds for Baron, I think Copenhagen Wolves need to start thinking about how they're going to get control of that area back.
It's going to be extremely difficult. Just Renekton alone, Kevin, he's making what looks to be a Guardian Angel. We'll see how he's going to spend his money as he goes back. Warmog's completed, Sunfire Cape, Hex Drinker, and possibly what's going to become a Guardian Angel. You kill him once, he comes back again. There is just so much tankability on that champion alone. He's going to get an entire duration in his Dominus, plus that Sunfire Cape. So if they start picking fights, it's almost impossible to see how they're going to handle Renekton, let alone anybody else. If they blow everything on Renekton, Ocelot and Candypan are just going to have free reign to land all the spells and all the damage that they need to win these fights.
So Baron is up. Godbro, Svenskr and Kautard are there. One thing that SK really have in their arsenal here is that Oracle Elixir. They're able to clear out everything that's put down by Wolves. You can see in their inventories nothing really in terms of wards apart from that Ruby Sightstone. And we are going to see them coming in now on towards Svenskr.
They're going to jump right in there. Cataclysm is blown. Ocelot has now jumped into the party, but he's a little bit deep, facing off damage. There's the Crescendo, locks up 4 members of the Copenhagen Wolves. Deficio's waiting to use the Wild Growth, still not been blown. The Test has been untouched in this fight. Finally, the intervention comes up, but Kautard's the first casualty of the battle. The rest of SK turn the attention onto the Test as he's trying to get away. There's 10 million pings on the minimap from SK. They're trying to pick targets, and Ace in the Hole does get channeled from the Test, but they end up losing Kautard. Wild Growth was blown at the end of that engagement. Crescendo was great, and Nif guaranteed that team fight once the teleports had been used.
Again, Nif and that Crescendo over the top of the trees. We've seen it time and time again for him. Svenskr going to go in. They set that one up perfectly, SK, and they say, well, now you've got no Nom and you've got no Smite. This is where we can feel a lot safer to do this Baron.
Yeah, without Cho'Gath trying to get in there with that true damage, it's going to be an almost guaranteed Baron. You can see a couple of the Copenhagen Wolves members on the minimap, but they're starting to back away, and you have to feel that with the last team fight loss, with the second Baron of the game going to SK Gaming, once they spend some of this money, it's only a matter of time before they close it out. And, they can take their time like they did last week if they really want to.
Well, I think they will want to at this point. Let's see what items they're going to be picking up after that one. There's a giant spell for Jarvan. Another blasting one coming out. So Rabadon's Death Cap almost finished for Ocelot there. Misfortune, I'm guessing is... Yeah, she's going actually back right now. So going to be picking up something there. Actually, the BF sword it will be. She comes back in and look at... he's brought that CS back now to 40, which is still a fair amount, but to be honest, at this stage of the game and how it could have gone, considering how far Tess was ahead, he's done a good job of getting back. Look at the gold, 14,000 to 13,600, 700. So he's done a really good job there, Candy Planner. He's got into those lanes where he could farm as often as he possibly can to bring that one back. And he's got 7 assists. Both AD carries right now, they've got 2 kills between them, which is not really normal for a game like this.
It is very unusual, but both of the AP middles have been securing most of those kills in this matchup. Ocelot with 7 of his team's 11 and 2 assists. So 9 out of the 11 kills Ocelot has been directly involved in and directly around for. Kautard sitting with 4 of his team's 6 kills. So the majority, the higher percentage of both teams are sitting on the side of their AP mids. The one thing that the Wolves do have in their favor, Glitter Lance, Piltover Peacemaker, it's a lot of AoE. It can kill creep waves very, very quickly, or minion waves. So if they are defending on their turrets, they can at least remove those minions very quickly and draw out those siege battles.
Well, talking of sieging, SK now headed towards this inner turret at the bottom. Not sure that Wolves will really be able to defend this one. You can see from the position that they're stood in, they decide, no, we're not going to get involved in that one. We don't want to be caught out again against a team which, they've had Baron, they've gone home, they've picked up another bunch of strong items to come back in. As Nif actually going to get Cocoon, gets ruptured here, gets hit with a Piltover Peacemaker. Not even half health gone away, and he's the squishiest one on the team.
Yeah, so true. But, Runic Willwalk, Ruby Sightstone, Philosopher's Stone, Merc Treads, and another Ruby Crystal. That is the squishiest member of the team with 2,500 hit points. So, it's not something you traditionally associate with a Sona having a huge amount of HP, but Nif 0010, no deaths to his name right now. He's had great crescendos once again. Literally team fight winning ultimates with that single ability. And it just seems as though the Copenhagen Wolves cannot handle the team fight pressure that SK are putting on right now.
And some teams are very much against, I think, banning out against supports. But I honestly think that Nif, in the games that we've seen him play Sona so far, has actually had a lot of, you know, game-winning moves from his Sona, from those crescendos. So maybe that's something that we'll see more targeted later on in the European LCS. But for now, SK moving their way in towards this inhibitor turret. As you said, waves wiped out very quickly here by Wolves, and that's one thing that might cause SK a few problems. Item-wise, they definitely can tank turrets and get in underneath them for the dives.
But I don't know if they want to risk it. You know, the same thing happened. You know, we were talking to them last week and said, well, you had this massive lead against the Wolves. Why didn't you just push in? And Ocelot was saying, well, we didn't want to throw it. We didn't want to mess it up. You know, they've lost how many games to Fnatic because they get this advantage, they play overly aggressive, and then throw it away. So it's this really difficult position to be in. They have the lead, they've extended it to a notable amount right now, and it's really just at what point does the dam break? You know, can the Copenhagen Wolves either put pressure back and force SK away and take some objectives, or if the the dam completely bursts, they'll lose an inhibitor, potentially the Nexus, depending on how many members of the team they lose.
We have the Guardian Angel, as you said earlier on, for Kevin now in play. So if he wasn't annoying enough as he was before, well, we'll kill him once. He's going to be back doing it all over again. Rabadon's Death Cap also done for Ocelot and Cassidy, and the Randuin's Omen added in for Jarvan as well. And second Bloodthirster for Misfortune. So there's just 3-4 different items added in that are going to be all kinds of pain coming down for Copenhagen Wolves.
And that's a 5-item Candy Panda right now. He has no defensive items, and he hasn't needed to. Only got 1 death in the entire duration of this matchup. His team has been defending him very well. Nif,
yeah, you can't get to him. That's a problem.
Exactly. You know, the engages from SK have always been on their terms, and it's been using their ultimates. Nif almost walking into 5 members of the Copenhagen Wolves, but again, those spidey sensors, those pro player tingles, allowing him to back away to safety before face-checking a bush.
Speaking of spidey sensors, the Cocoon and the Spiderling both not hitting him in that one, just out of range. Is Coutard and Deficio going to try and cover this bottom lane out? They are now pushing their way in towards that bottom inhibitor turret, though. The rest of SK all coming around, and as you said, it's all about not throwing now from SK's point of view. They can't afford another one of those games where they look so certain. I think this is a slightly different case to what we saw earlier for them, but they're not going to risk it. It's about being safe and about getting the job done. And
they've played very well. You know, they were arguably losing the early game. You know, Copenhagen Wolves applied a lot of pressure to them, pushed them back to their side of the map. It actually kept them on their inhibitor turrets. But once they picked that one team fight, all of a sudden the entire, you know, sense of the team, the entire pressure that they had changed. They started picking fights every opportunity possible wherever the Copenhagen Wolves grouped up. And I think that's been one of the downfalls of the Wolves. They haven't split up in these team fights. They've been caught by multi-man crescendos, been caught by multi-man cataclysms, and that is credit, you know, full credit to Nif and to Hercubot. But the Wolves need to spread up, group, you know, diversify their positioning, if that makes any sense at all.
Total perfect sense.
There we go.
No, but you're right in what you're saying. I mean, where do you fight against a team of SK's comp? Like, what position is actually good for you? Because they create the position in a way, SK Gaming, and especially when you're in the jungle going up towards Baron. We saw what happens before Jarvan sliding, getting the knock-up, and, you know, Renekton diving in Cataclysm, Crescendo. Like, they're all perfect places around the jungle. Even in that bottleneck going into the base, SK have actually, that's a really good setting for them to get in there and set their combo up. We can see that they've once again got all the wards down on this top side of the Copenhagen Wolves jungle, just in time for that Baron to spawn. It's up in 3 seconds. There's a dragon coming up at the same time, which Copenhagen Wolves certainly can't afford to trade for a Baron. And look at this, they're actually going straight up the middle here, but this is going to be a big trap.
Take a look at this. The SK Gaming team has jumped in there. Cataclysm has landed just onto Coutard, so that's not ideal. The Wolves have finally split up the way that they need to, so there's no multi-man crescendos, but with Coutard being caught out, he's dropped low. 3 members of the Wolves are locked up by their crescendo by Nif, so a very, very good ultimate once they do decide to group up. Ocelot has chased down the test. He's picked up the first kill of the game while Coutard has been taken out up at the top. Ignite is ticking down onto Ocelot while the rest of the Wolves try to retreat. They try to run away. They haven't got any kills right now. Ocelot jumps back in, picks up a kill onto Cho'Gath. That is an ace for SK Gaming to have creeps moving into this middle lane, and they're just going to tank up the inhibitor turret. Huge team fight for SK.
Yeah, Kevin again he's got no fears. He's got a Guardian Angel. He can afford to get in there, have that fight, even afford to die, and then come back straight in. SK, you know, they peeled off perfectly the men that were low HP. They came back into the fight. You saw Urcubot running away towards the base at the middle of it, and then came back in at the end to get the knockups on the men that were trying to escape at the end. There are both Nexus turrets going down. The Nexus itself is going to fall, and SK going to go tied top of the table here with EG with 3 wins and 1 loss.
Really, really well played by SK. I thought I panicked for a bit in that the last fight. Now these Wolves split up, and Nif just played so patiently. He just waited until there were a few lined up in his sights and
still got 3 in it, I think, in that crescendo right at the end there.
Yeah, and I mean, you've seen how they were split. There with this half moon positioning. It was absolutely fantastic.
Brilliant, brilliant play from SK Gaming. As I said, they go top of the table, joint with EG, which you know, kind of sets us up for that last match of the day. But that's obviously not it. We've got another 2 games coming your way. But first, we're going to throw it over to Demon and Jason, and they're going to break down all the action from SK versus Wolves.
Yes, thank you very much, Joe. And as you come over to me, I'm fighting off a sneeze, which is I could feel it coming. I'm like, don't. This is the worst time. But wow, what a game went on. And I just said to you, Joe and Jason, it's SK Copenhagen Wolves. It's going to be another 50-minute game again. Yeah. And they took their time. But SK were actually behind for a long time in that game. And it wasn't until that great aggressive play from Nif, really. And you mentioned, I think it was Cho'Gath got down to about half health. And that's what turned things around.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because SK is normally not on the back foot like that. Like, versus Fnatic, usually the ones being the aggressor, pushing up and losing their advantage. But they turned it around. They showed really great composure, really great focus as well to last that game out long enough so they could actually turn that great fight around. And we actually do have a replay, which is exactly what you're talking about when SK finally gets a couple kills here. But just to set it up for you real quick, it is 6-5. We have Copenhagen Wolves pushing that middle inhibitor turret, and it is 43.2 thousand gold to 40,000. So let's go and get the replay on your screen and just show you why this kind of gives SK the advantage.
So if you check out the replay right now, you can see this was at 6-5. Like you say, it was actually Copenhagen Wolves being the aggressor right now.
Yeah, it was very true. And the point is that Sven Skarrson, he takes too much chip right here, and because of that, it's pretty much SK's call to, hey, let's just engage this, let's give it a try. And one big problem that Wolves do is Kautardi actually pops his intervention onto Nigod Bro, who actually just didn't really need it at that point. You see the nice crescendo, the nice ultimate out of Jarvan to catch Deficio, to catch the test, to catch Godbro there. But here comes intervention, landed on the wrong target. If it was on the test, he could have survived a little bit longer. But even with that, I still feel that Wolves would have lost that fight either way. They pick up 4 kills, and they ended up pretty much getting the Baron right off the back of that as well.
Yeah, so and you can see that's really what turned it all around. Nif managed to land that perfect crescendo, and the Cataclysm was just, it was perfectly positioned. It just hit the whole team, really. Fantastically worked out there. So really that was one of the big things that turned it around there. And of course, on the back of that, they managed to go get the Baron fight. There was a great bit of play at the Baron fight. Sneaky play, I think they could call it, around the corner there. They caught out Sven Skarrson, got caught out in the corner there. So really, SK Gaming showing that actually they've got quite a bit of maturity right now. You know, the fact that they didn't panic, they were behind, they didn't just lose it. You know, we've talked about SK being a confidence team in the past, but actually it seemed to work out for them. Maybe they've gone to that next level.
Yeah, they just waited for that moment to strike. They just bided their time as long as possible, farm up, and once they pretty much knew we have a great team fight composition. We have that Cataclysm, we have the crescendo right behind that. They knew they could win these team fights, but as long as they dragged it out long enough, they could pull an inner EG, I'll say, for that, just to kind of strike back and end up taking that game. So it was overall well played by SK. It does show their maturity as a team, and it's kind of funny because it's only been a week since that happened.
So what do you take of this from the fact, bearing the fact now SK are now top of the league? Copenhagen Wolves have not won yet, but they've looked good every game they've played.
Well, I think SK is kind of focused on the last game of the day because they want to take that first place of the league right now, beat EG, take first place, and pretty much just kind of use that against them. Be like, hey, aren't you guys first place anymore? Oh, wait, we are. But yeah, Wolves, they're playing solid. They really are. They kind of just... They need that little oomph. I can't even think of a word for it, but just that little oomph to kind of get that final victory. And that might happen next week with Bjergsen coming in, since he will be hitting 17 this week, and will be replacing Kautardi, who will be going to sub.
Well, SK certainly had that little oomph in there, and really the key man that got the highest kills in that game is Ocelot. So let's head over to Shox, who's standing by with him.
Yes, first off, congratulations, Carlos, on that game. Now, in the beginning, your team was put under a lot of pressure by the Copenhagen Wolves, and I heard Hercubot, the jungler, apologize for his early game to you. So run us through how you got the game.
Well, as I always say, sometimes we just play bad, you know. Sometimes, well, this game, John didn't start pretty good. But this is how a team works, you know. We have 5, we carry each other, and this time he got carried. The other day against Fnatic, I got carried. It's how it works, you know. One day you play bad, one day you play good. It's how it works. That's why you got a team behind.
Absolutely. And can you say how your team got together with having Hercubot as a jungler, having Candy Panda back? How did that all come together?
Well, they were both pretty focused into being really good players this season. So I was like, this is a no-brainer, you know, just get them. And I know they're pretty good guys as personalities. So we can go ahead with this. And I had a talk with Candy Panda as well. He promised me he will be like crazy 80, and he's demonstrating that he's being really crazy. He's really, really good right now. And everything is perfect right now. Like, I don't care even if we lose this game, we lose whatever next games. I'm pretty happy with this team. Yeah.
All right. Now going into the game, about the picks, you picked your Kassadin, which went really well. We had Nif picking Sona. Do you think, well, we can take on these wolves if we just pick basic and pick what we're good at, instead of maybe counter-picking or going for a little bit of cheese?
So at the beginning, we were a little bit hesitating because we know that Kayle corners Kassadin pretty hard in lane. But I don't know, I was like, I feel pretty comfortable just pick Kassadin. And even though it doesn't match too much the team setup, we're going to do good. And that's what happened, you know. We had a really good combo except for Kassadin. Kassadin is a really, really strange hero, if you ask me. And at the end, it turned out good, you know. This time it turned out good. I'm very happy, actually, because that game was really hard, actually, at the beginning.
Yeah. So you say you would pick Kassadin over the fact that it might not be good for your team comp. Is that something we'll see going into the matchup against EG too? That you would choose something you like to play over what is good for the team comp?
Well, I got 3 champions that I will play them no matter what I play against. One of them is Kassadin, and the other 2 you'll figure out.
So finally, what are you feeling going into the match against EG?
I feel very prepared and pumped up, and I know they won the revenge, but all I want is to repeat the feeling we had the last day, which was awesome. So, see you next game, man.
All right, thank you very much, Aslak. All right, we heard from Carlos, but remember that we want to hear from you. We want to hear your answer to the following question. What champion do you think has had the most impact on LCS so far? You know, you can tweet at LOL eSports, #LCS. Same if you have a question for any one of us here in the studio. For now, we're going to a short break, but when we come back after the break, we'll see the first showing of Against All Authority as they take on Gambit Gaming. It will be cast by Joe Miller and Jason Kaplan. See you in a bit.